Namaste, namaskaram, vanakkam, namo namaha. So this is our first in the fear trilogy, fear in costume. So we're going to look at men's fears, women's fears, and the paradox of exposure. Fear rarely appears honestly. Most people do not walk around saying, quote, I am afraid, unquote. They disguise it. They dress it up. They give it a posture, a voice, a style, a strategy. Fear may appear as anger, arrogance, perfectionism, silence, control, seduction, withdrawal, overachievement, intimidation, or self-decoration. This is why fear is so difficult to understand. It does not always tremble. Sometimes fear struts. Sometimes it smiles. Sometimes fear looks beautiful. Sometimes fear looks powerful. Sometimes fear looks like confidence. Sometimes it looks like masculinity, femininity. Much of human life is not simply the overcoming of fear, but the performance of fear in socially acceptable forms. For many men, for example, fear may become the fear of weakness. For many women, fear may become the Miro as a battlefield. Not all men respond in one way, and not all women respond in another, of course. Men also fear aging, rejection, beauty judgment, vulnerability. But women also perform toughness and dominance and emotional armor. But as broad social patterns, masculine and feminine fear can often take on different costumes. The man may hide fear by becoming hard. The woman may hide fear by becoming perfect. But both are trying to survive. Many boys are taught early that fear is shameful. They learn that to admit fear is to risk humiliation. They are told directly or indirectly not to cry, not to hesitate, not to look weak, not to back down, not to be vulnerable, not to be soft. So the fear doesn't really disappear, it just goes underground. Then it often returns wearing armor. The fear of weakness may appear as swagger. It may appear as aggression. It may appear as emotional numbness and risk-taking, mockery, dominance, loudness, or intimidation. The bully. It may appear as the young man leaning against the car with a bumper sticker that says, quote, fear this, unquote. Or they may say, quote, fear less, unquote. What that really means is, do not think, do not feel, do not listen, do not admit danger. But this is not true courage. It's fear in a costume. The macho man may not have overcome fear. He may simply be performing over it. He fears really being exposed as vulnerable. He fears being laughed at. He fears being rejected. He fears being physically overpowered, seen as emotional, socially humiliated, and perhaps sexually inadequate. Financially unsuccessful. He fears not being respected. He fears not being, quote, man enough, unquote. So he tries to become larger than his fear. He may become loud, hard, seemingly dangerous, dismissive, controlling. He becomes the man, quote unquote, who wants others to feel fear so that he does not have to feel his own. This is a hidden tragedy of so-called macho fearlessness. It needs an audience, actually. But truth strength does not need to frighten people. Immature fearlessness wants to be feared. Mature fearlessness has no need to frighten anyone. The boy, the man who says, quote, fear this, unquote, is still orbiting fear. He may not be free from fear at all. He needs others to fear him so that he can feel powerful. He confuses intimidation with strength, noise with courage, and emotional hardness with maturity. But real courage is much quieter. Real courage can admit fear without collapsing. Real courage can feel vulnerability without being ruled by shame. Real courage can stand firm without needing to dominate. Real courage can listen. Real courage can apologize. And real courage protects without bullying. Real courage can be strong without a performance strength. The fear of weakness is healed not by becoming more frightening, but by becoming more honest. Now, let's turn our attention to the female and the Miro as a battlefield. The Miro can become a battlefield for many women. They may look into the mirror and not simply see their face. They may see judgment, comparison, aging. She may see rejection. She may see the younger version of herself. She may see the woman she is told she must compete with. She may see social media, advertising, male approval, female approval, workplace pressure, family expectations, and the cruel beauty culture. Am I pretty enough? Am I thin enough? Am I young enough? Am I desirable enough? Am I aging too quickly? Are my wrinkles showing? Is my hair right? Is my body acceptable? Will I be ignored? Will I be replaced? Will I become invisible? These fears are not shallow simply because they involve appearance. Human societies have often tied women's values to youth, beauty, fertility, desirability, and presentation. A woman may know intellectually that her worth is deeper than her appearance, yet still feel the pressures in her body. And that pressure is reinforced everywhere. Cosmetics, fashion, anti-aging products, beauty industries, entertainment media, workplace standards, dating culture, and the constant comparison machine of the internet. Makeup's not the problem. Fear-driven worthlessness is the problem. Beauty's not the problem. Bondage to beauty is the problem. Adornment is not the problem. The problem is when adornment becomes anxiety, when self-care becomes self-surveillance, when the mirror becomes a judge, and when the face becomes a project of survival. Makeup can be an art. Hair can be creativity. Clothing can be dignity. Beauty can be a celebration. Ornamentation can bring joy, culture, play, and self-expression. But when the woman feels she cannot leave the house without being corrected by the mirror. Fear has entered the rituals. When she feels that age is a failure, wrinkles are a threat, and natural change is humiliation, then fear has taken the place of freedom. And of course, the marketplace profits from this fear. It whispers, quote, "You are not enough yet," unquote. Then it sells another product, another procedure, another filter, another promise. Aging becomes treated not as wisdom, but as a defeat. This is cruel. A woman's face is not a battlefield where time must be defeated. Her body is not a public argument to be judged by strangers. Her worth is not measured by smooth skin, hair color, sexual desirability, or the ability to look younger than she is. The fear beneath the mirror must be heard compassionately. It is not solved by mocking women for caring about beauty. It is solved by asking why so many women have been taught that beauty is the condition of being loved, respected, chosen, or safe. Now, there's another fear many women carry that must be placed in a different category. Of course, it's the fear of violation, and especially sexual violation. The fear of rape, for example, is not vanity. It is not insecurity. It is not a cosmetic fear. And it's not childish. And it's not imaginary. For many women, the fear of male violence is part of a daily calculation. Where can I park? Who's walking behind me? Is the door locked? Can I trust this person? Is my drink safe? Should I text someone my location? Is it safe to go out alone? Will this man accept no? Am I being rude if I protect myself? Am I in danger if I do not smile? This is not false fear. Very often, unfortunately, it's a realistic fear. A woman's fear of rape is often society's failure written into her nervous system. And this fear should not be dismissed as paranoia. It should not be treated as weakness. It is often the result of living in a world where women have learned that their bodies can become targets. Their boundaries can be ignored, and their safety can be threatened by those who feel entitled to them. The fear of violation changes how a woman moves through the world. It may affect her clothing choices, travel choices, social choices, her speech, posture, politeness. The fear is not healed by telling women, "Don't be afraid." It is healed by creating a world in which women have less reason to be afraid. That requires men to examine not only violence but entitlement, not only assault but coercion, not only criminal behavior but the smaller habits of pressure, pursuit, intimidation, objectification, and refusal to hear the word no. A mature society does not ask women to carry all the vigilance. A mature society teaches men to carry responsibility. Now, let's handle something delicately here, the paradox of exposure. For there is another modern complexity that must be faced carefully. Even though the fear of sexual violation is very real for many women, contemporary society often shows an increasingly comfort level with revealing clothing. At beaches, in nightlife, in social media culture, and in fashion, many women wear clothing that exposes much more of the body than previous generations have considered normal. At first, this might seem contradictory. If women fear objectification, harassment, or violation, why would some choose to reveal so much of the body? But the matter is not that simple. A woman may reveal her body and still fear violation. The two are not contradictions if we understand that freedom of display is not consent to harm. Clothing does not cause rape. Revealing clothing is not permission. A woman's body being visible does not mean her body is available. The problem is not the clothing. The problem is a society that cannot distinguish visibility from permission. A woman may dress revealingly for many reasons. It could be comfort, climate, fashion, beach culture, confidence, sexuality, beauty, rebellion, self-expression, peer norms, social media influence, or the desire to feel free in her own body. Sometimes it may be empowerment. Sometimes it might be performance. Sometimes it might be both. This is where modern fear becomes complicated. A woman may want to be seen and still fear being objectified. She may want to feel beautiful and still fear being reduced to her body. She may want freedom and still fear male entitlement. She may want to enjoy her body without having that enjoyment interpreted as an invitation. Revealing clothing may be confidence. It may also be another form of obedience to the gaze. It may say, I am free. It may also silently ask, am I desirable enough? It may be self-expression. Or it might be just another costume fear wears in a culture that tells women their value depends on being attractive. So the question is not simply, why do women dress that way? The deeper question is, can a society allow women to be visible without treating visibility as permission? And also, importantly, can women become free enough to know whether their self-presentation comes from joy, confidence, or pressure, or fear, or the need to be approved? Now, of course, this is not a call of blaming women. It's a call to understand the pressure placed on women's bodies from every direction. Women are told to be attractive, but not too available. Confident, but not too inviting. Modest, but not invisible. Desirable, but not, quote, asking for it, unquote. Youthful, but not childish. Sexy, but not unsafe. Free, but still careful. Now, that's an impossible burden. The real maturity is not to police women's clothing, nor to pretend clothing has no social meaning at all. It does. The maturity is to understand that the body has become one of the central battlefields of modern fear. Fear of invisibility, fear of judgment, fear of violation, fear of aging, fear of not being enough, fear of not being free. The woman in revealing clothing may not be fearless. She might be confident. She might just be performing. She may be under pressure. She might be joyful, but she also might be wounded. She may be free. She may be all of these things at once. That is why fear must be heard carefully, not judged quickly, not dismissed, and not exploited, and not blamed, but heard. So let's examine now permission and the fashion crowd. This is where the two sides of the issue come into stark contrast. A woman may experience revealing clothing as appreciation of her own body. She may see it as beauty, confidence, comfort, fashion, freedom, self-expression. But a man may wrongly interpret the same clothing as an invitation, availability, or permission. The woman may be saying, I am appreciating my body, but the man hears, I am inviting you. This is one of the dangerous misunderstandings at the center of modern sexual culture. Visibility is not permission. Display is not consent. A woman's body being seen does not mean her body is being offered. At the same time, we should not pretend that clothing has no meaning at all. Human beings communicate often through clothing. Dress can signal mood, identity, confidence, modesty, rebellion, or sexuality, status, group belongings, or just simply fashion awareness. It may invite attention, but it does not authorize violation. The mature society must be able to hold both truths at once. Clothing has meaning, and clothing is not consent. Now, there's another force at work for both men and, especially in this case, women. Fashion often moves through imitation. One person wears something, then another, then another. Soon, what once seemed unusual becomes normal. Of course, this happens with men, but especially visible in women's fashion because women's bodies are more intensely watched, judged, marketed, and socially compared. One year it is yoga pants, another year it's a certain hairstyle, another season it's a certain kind of swimsuit. One or two people wear thong-like beachwear, and after a few summers it appears everywhere. Yoga pants are everywhere. Same hairstyle. What began as bold or unusual becomes ordinary through repetition. Cookie cutters. Now this raises another question. Is everyone freely choosing? Or is it the crowd teaching people what freedom is supposed to look like? Fashion can make conformity feel like freedom. A woman may genuinely enjoy a style, but she may also merely be responding to peer culture, media images, social proof, marketplace pressure, fear of looking outdated, and fear of being invisible. And of course, the fear of not being attractive enough. The body then becomes not only a personal expression, but a social signal carried by the crowd. This does not mean women should be blamed for following fashion. Men, too, follow status signals, cars, muscles, brands, weapons, sports, culture, money, watches, dominance displays, and the performance of toughness. We humans are social creatures. We imitate. We compare. We adjust ourselves to what the tribe rewards. Reactive tribal, first two emotions. But because woman's appearance is so heavily scrutinized, fashion can become another battlefield of fear. The question then no longer simply is, do I like this? The question becomes, will I be seen? Will I belong? Will I be desirable? Will I be judged? Am I current? Am I enough? Thus, revealing clothing may represent freedom, but it may also represent conformity. It may be confidence, but it might also be simply pressure. It might be self-expression, but it also might be simply obedience to the gaze. Now, the task, of course, is not to police women's clothing. The task is to become honest about the forces acting upon your body. Is it desire, fear, beauty, freedom, conformity, commerce, sexuality, and the hunger to be seen? A mature culture would teach men not to mistake visibility for permission, but it would also help women to ask whether their presentation comes from freedom, fear, joy, pressure, or the need to be approved. Only then can the body become less of a battlefield and more of a truthful home. The masculine fear of weakness and the feminine fear of inadequacy may look different, but both arise from the same human wound, the fear of not being enough. The macho man fears being seen as weak. The anxious woman fears being seen as not enough. The man may try to escape fear by becoming untouchable. The woman may try to escape fear by becoming flawless. The man's fear may say, quote, "If they fear me, I'm safe," unquote. The woman's fear may say, quote, "If I'm perfect, I'm safe," unquote. Both are exhausting. And both are, of course, unstable. Both are depending upon the eyes of others. The macho man needs others to see him as powerful. The appearance-driven woman needs others to see her as desirable, acceptable, beautiful. In both cases, the self becomes dependent on the gaze of the world. This is why fear so often simply becomes performance. The man performs hardness. The woman performs perfection. The man wears armor. The woman wears a cosmetic mask. But underneath, both may be asking the same question. Am I safe if I am seen honestly? Now, the solution is not to shame men for wanting strength or women for wanting beauty. Strength is good. Beauty is good. Confidence is good. Presentation can be meaningful. Courage is necessary. Adornment can be playful and joyful. The problem is not strength or beauty. The problem is fear pretending to be strength and fear being sold as beauty. A man does not become free by becoming more intimidating. He becomes free by no longer needing intimidation to feel real. A woman does not become free by abandoning beauty. She becomes free by no longer believing beauty is the condition of her worth. The task is to bring fear out of its costumes. Instead of fear this, the man may need to say, I am afraid of being weak. Instead of, I must look perfect, the woman may need to say, I'm afraid I will not be loved as I am. This is honesty. It's not defeat. It's the beginning of maturity. Because fear becomes dangerous when it remains hidden. Hidden fear becomes ultimately domination, vanity, control, shame, addiction, violence, self-hatred. But fear that is heard clearly can become information. It can tell us where we are wounded. It can teach us boundaries. It can show us where we need courage, where we need healing, and where society itself has to change. We do not need to obey every fear. We need to listen to them. Fear has an ear. And perhaps the first act of maturity is to stop performing long enough to listen.